I'm George, and this is the ninth lesson of my Java programming tutorial series. In this episode, we are going to create some shapes. We are going to create a rectangle, a square, a circle. So let's get started. First of all, let's create a movable object interface. And this movable object interface will have some methods. We will have a double get center x method, which will return the center x of the object, and of course get center y method, which also returns a double, and get radius x method, which returns the radius of the object, and the get radius y, which returns the y radius of the object. And we will also be able to move this object, but we won't really care about these movements in this video, so we'll just implement it, and you may use this method later when you are doing your homework or whenever you want. I'm going to show you how to make default methods in interface. So we are going to create a new default point2d method for getting the center of the movable object as a point2d. So it will basically just create a new point2d from the get center x and the get center y return values. We are also going to do the same thing for the radius, so create a new default point2d getRadius method, which returns a new point2d with the getRadius x and the getRadius y. Now we have this interface ready, and I'm going to show you that we can't really make a toString method in interfaces. Let's just try to do it. So default toString, and as you can see it's red, so yes, I forgot to add the string here, but it's still red. If you hover your mouse over there, you will see the default method toString overrides a member of Java long object. So we can't make a toString method for the interfaces. So let's just create some classes now, which implements this interface. We are going to create a new cube class, which you will rename to square later in your homework. And we are going to create a new rectangle. The cube will have a constructor of x coordinate, a y coordinate, and of course a radius. And of course it will implement the movable object interface. And we need to implement all these methods what the movable object has, but before doing that we can just create these fields. So double x, double y, and double radius. And these can be private, of course, because we don't want client code to access these fields. We are going to pass all the values what we got in the constructor to these fields, and after that we can finally implement the methods of the movable object. And the movement is pretty simple. We are going to change the x and the y coordinates what we had here, and the get center x will basically return the x, get center y return the y, and the get radius x will just return the radius, and the get radius y will also return the radius because the cube has the same radius for the x and the y. We are also going to create a toString method, which will show us that we have a cube, and it will show its x and y coordinates as well as its radius. So we have finished this cube class, and now we can copy all of this code to the rectangle class and change it to make it work like a rectangle instead of a cube. So we need to make it implement the movable object class and rename the constructor to rectangle and add the separate x and y radius there. And of course use these x and y radiuses for assigning them to fields, and return the radius x and radius y. And of course also change the toString method to be rectangle, and also show the radius x and the radius y, not only one radius. Now we can create another interface which will be called container. This container will have a boolean method contains with a double x and a double y parameters. And it will basically be true if the movable object is containing the given point. So we are going to implement this contains method in the movable object. Checking if something contains something is not so simple, but we will try to do it. So first of all, we need to get the min x and the min y parameters of this movable object. So we are going to create some methods for it, for getting the min x and the min y, also the max x and the max y. And of course we need to implement all these methods, but it's simple since we only need to subtract min x will be the subtraction of get center x minus get radius x. Min y will be the same but with the y coordinates. Max will be additions instead of subtractions. So once we have all these mins and maxes, we can add some conditions there. So the x needs to be greater or equal to min x, the x needs to be smaller or equal to max x, and the y needs to be greater or equal to min y, and the y needs to be smaller or equal to max y. After reformatting the code, we can create a new class, call it circle. It will also implement the movable object, and we can copy the code of the cube here. And of course, change it, rename all the cubes to circles, and implement this contains method, because for circle the contains method is different. For calculating the contains method result in circle, we need to calculate the distance between the circle's center and a certain point. But we can do this distance calculation in the movable object actually. So we are going to create a default double method here called dist, which will have a x and a y parameters, and we can calculate the distance the way I wrote it here. After we are done with these distance calculations, we can just use this dist function to calculate the distance, and if it's smaller than the radius or equal to the radius, then we know that our circle contains the given x and y coordinates. In the last class, what we are going to create will be a point container. This point container will only contain an array of points. We are going to create a constructor there where we can enter the points as varargs. We can create varargs by doing class name dot 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 and the variable name. And the implementation of the contains method will be basically looping through all these points and finding a point which has the same x and same y coordinate what we are looking for. So now we can finally implement our main method in the lesson 9 class, where we will initialize all these shapes and we will print them, of course. Oh, we forgot to implement the toString method of the point container, so we are going to do it right now. We can just use the arrays.toString method for now. And we are going to print the contains method result for the coordinates between -1 and 1 in both x and y axes. And the body of these 4 cycles will contain the contains method result of all these shapes that we created. So the circle that contains xy, the cube that contains xy, the rectangle that contains xy, and the points that contains xy method results. And as a prefix for all of these, we are going to just print some equals characters and x and the y, so we know that which x and y are we currently testing. Now we can run the program. You can compare these results with the picture I have shown you in the beginning of the video to see that all of these are correct. And now, after you verified all these things, we can move to the last part of this video, which will be the homework. So your homework after watching this video will be renaming the cube class to square, as I have told you in the beginning of this video. Your second homework will be changing the for loop to loop from -2 to 2 in both directions, so we could see all the shapes being formed. And of course you should post your solution as a comment and ask any questions, and of course leave a feedback in a comment for this video. If you like this video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Also click the notification bell so you could get notified when I upload the next video of this series.